Yeah, you just kind of.
What are you doing?
There you go. Just kind of.
What's next on the list?
So we've got these pathways. I think I called you up. Okay. So we've got 6 of them, which makes it for the entire family or 2-3 couples. So what I'm thinking about doing in spring break is going from Potash and Moab down to the Concords. And then getting the dollhouse and then carrying across and then cutting those out through Chesler Park.
Oh, yeah, good.
Chesler Park is just awesome.
Did you read an agenda?
Sure,
that would be great. Thank you, Sherry.
40 miles. And then you get out and you go to the houses. In some spots, there's a little bit of elevation.
Graduation.
So that's one. The other is your interest in the
Sit down here by my microphone. Excuse me. What is she in?
That's kind of the other option.
Kristen, do you want to face the crowd or me?
It doesn't matter either way.
Okay.
You're fine, I can watch your facial expressions.
Okay. That's scary.
All right, we're getting pretty close. We're getting started here. Close enough? Okay. I want to welcome everybody. Jamie Bracken is not here today. She is the chairman of this board, and I will be acting on her behalf. She is disposed of at this time, so I will be the acting voice for this board today. I'd like to welcome everybody today. And at this time, I would like for everybody to rise and say the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. So I need to have a motion to adjourn from the executive session and to convene the UNT County School District number 1 board meeting.
Second.
Joel.
And Jenny. Joel and Jenny. Okay, first thing on the agenda is we need to adopt the agenda. I need to have a motion to adopt the agendas for today's meeting.
Mr. Chairman, so moved.
Second.
Who was the motion?
Dan? And Caleb. All right, next thing we're moving on to is the consent agenda. I will go down through each one of them, and maybe that'll burn a little bit of time. So on our consent agenda, we need to have a motion to approve the minutes from 9/7/21.
So moved.
Just wait, he's going to read through them.
Oh, okay.
The payment of bills. We need to ratify the Rocky Mountain Power easement agreement. We need to consent upon the contract for the additional nurse. And then also, we need to consent upon the North Elementary excess lab equipment. And that is all of the consent agenda items.
So moved.
So moved?
Second.
Wow, stereo.
Dan?
Nice. Yeah. All right, that concludes all the consent agendas.
All in favor?
All in favor? Say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. I don't have my wife here correcting me.
I'll work with that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. You're not nearly as cute as she is, but I appreciate the help, so. Next thing is we have a presentation, I'm assuming from Mr. Thomas on the COVID update.
Yeah, it's not really a presentation, I just wanted to give you an update, but that's where I
Okay.
put it.
All right.
We've, I think, been very fortunate. Right now, as of Friday, we only had 15 cases positive in our student population. We had 5 staff members that are positive, and that's right where the numbers have stayed. The previous week, I think it's because of homecoming, the numbers got a little higher at the high school. They had 17 just at the high school alone, relatively none at any other school. So our numbers are really pretty good, which I think we're excited about. There's about 160 individuals that have been contacted due to close contact, but most of them have made the decision to stay at school with a mask. We only have 10 in quarantine now. They've made that decision either because of a family exposure or their choice to stay home for the 14 days. So again, things are looking really good. Keep our fingers crossed that this is even actually 15 is high for us for the last previous weeks, and I kept you up to date. It's been less than that. So in the important number, it's only 5 staff members, and we can cover 5 staff members. So things are looking good.
All right, thank you. Next on the agenda is school reports. And anybody? Mr. Brown?
If you request it, I am always up.
So I see we're going to talk a little bit about homecoming. I just got to tell you, it was fantastic. It was
You just stole
incredible.
his thunder.
I know, I'm just saying, I was there, and the crowd was amazing, absolutely amazing, the people that we had there in the afternoon game, so.
Yep, so, yeah, just a report on homecoming. It was fantastic. And all of the activities went really well. We brought, so with Lily's, the student council, we painted, we whitewashed the E for the first time since I've been here, 15 years. So that was brought back. What else did we do, Lily? We did the honk out, was brought back.
That was new. We spray painted the E first.
Yeah, they spray painted the E, which was a new tradition, the seniors. And then we had the seniors come back and actually help the freshmen whitewash it, which was a good decision.
And then we had the car bash.
And then they had the car bash, and that was a lot of fun. So a lot of activities went really well. One of the things that kind of surprised me was the number of kids that attended the dance. It was almost double any past homecoming that I can remember. I don't know how many kids, I'm guessing around 400?
Yeah, it was roughly.
Yeah, so half the student body came to the dance, which is unheard of for a dance. And so that was fantastic. Anything you want to add, Lily, while we're doing it?
I think it went really well. I think a big part of the reason that so many students came to the dance was just because COVID. They wanted something to go out and do, which fair enough. Overall, I think it went really well, and we went over things to fix for next year, so thanks for letting us do stuff.
Yeah, so it was really great. So super great job to student council, just an A+ job. So really appreciate them. The other thing that I just wanted to kind of touch on, the seniors have come to me and they would like the option of doing graduation on Friday night. And so To me, it doesn't matter. It's either Friday night at 7 or Saturday morning at 10. And so we did a survey with all of the students. 171 kids responded, which is about 90-some percent. And 81% of the kids want to do it on Friday night. Doesn't surprise me.
Parents.
So that's been my question, right? Because we don't have, so I've been up at parent-teacher conferences, and Mr. Kohler and I, we've done a straw poll on 32 parents. And right now, it's 17 to, well, actually, there's 34, because it's 17 to 17. So it's exactly split from parents, and so that's something that we need to make a decision on pretty quickly. What are your thoughts as a board? That would be my...
What are the reasons for wanting to change from Saturday to Friday night?
So the biggest reason was that a lot of the student body voted to have fireworks after. So if we did it at night, we could do it like right before sunset, and then when we get done, we would have fireworks at the end.
So I'm going to pose this question.
Yep.
Fireworks might not be available if we're having to have it inside because we are still in May.
Yeah,
and the
it's going to be outside regardless.
Okay, even
So,
if we've got a blizzard and snow?
Yep.
Okay.
If it's a blizzard, it'll be a shortest graduation ever. So, and we had made accommodations for that this last year. Yeah.
Go ahead,
Was
Chris.
Saturday night talked about at all? Because I know some of the concerns I heard was, I have family coming in on Saturday to watch graduation already. Would Saturday night be an option? Would that influence those other 17 parents to consider it?
That's a great question. I don't know.
And that's my recommendation. I think you need to send a
Just
poll out to all the parents and just ask what they think, because you're going to have lots of families who have plans already for Saturday, and you're going to have lots of families who have family coming in for Saturday, and so I think you need to ask our parents what they
Okay. So that's my plan, is
I know
to
that
get
people, like Krista, has already made reservations for spaces.
Yeah.
That's the other thing, people get on early to try to have those.
That's why, that's why we've got to decide right away.
To have
So,
their graduation parties, so.
any other thoughts from you guys on that? Preference?
You'll make the best choice.
So who do I listen to?
Better listen to the parents.
Parents.
Okay,
Whatever the majority is.
okay. All right, so, thank you. That's all I have. Other than that, school's going great, and we're doing remarkably well with COVID, even though, we did kind of have a little bit of a spike at the high school. I'm not so sure that it was tied to homecoming or not, because when I, kind of tried to figure out from each individual kid, who knows where they got it. So, but it's going really well. I'm really proud of our kids, staff, and everybody, so just really thankful to them. So, okay, thank you.
Thanks, thank you. Mr. Peterson.
Yes, Mr. Peterson, members of the board, happy to be here tonight. The thing that I'm going to talk about a few things, but as all of our elementary schools are Title I schools, which means we have a certain percentage of students who are free and reduced lunch, and so as a result, the federal government gives us some extra additional funding to help us with instruction in our schools. And one of the things that they encourage and I guess, kind of mandate actually is to have families into our school buildings, to teach families about certain things about math and literacy and those kind of things. So one of the first things we have already done this year is we have donuts for dads. And people always ask, well, why don't you do just, pastries for parents, make sure to include everyone. And so as a principal, I've done that before, and then it's just the moms come. And so that's why we call it Donuts for Dads. But we always make sure to mention that, grandpas are welcome to come, brothers, uncles, moms, anyone. We don't turn anyone away. So anyway, we just barely had that. And we had 380 people signed in, which was a huge number for us, and we did 40 dozen donuts. We purchased that many, and we almost ate all of those. And so I think people are so excited to get back to those kind of events, and I think it was our best one that we've ever had. So that was really great for us. Our next event we have is a math trunk or treat, and so that's going to be on the 26th. So hopefully we have tons of families out, and it'll be outside, so we're not all, crammed in some kind of space. But we're super excited for that, and we expect a large turnout for that. So we do need some extra people manning trunks. So we bought tons of candy, but we need enough trunks to pass those out to kids, and we'll just have some kind of math questions or a little math thing in order for them to earn their candy. So anyway, a lot of fun things going on, and it's exciting to have families back in the schools. And even with our Donuts for Dads, we not only used our whole cafeteria, but we used the gym as well, just keep people spread out and plenty of room to move and eat donuts. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Peterson. And on those Donuts for Dad, it works exactly the way you want it to. Because as a dad, my kids wanted me there. And so it worked perfectly, and I appreciate you doing that. Because it's easy to just say, well, I'm working, I can't, and they made it a point to have me go with them. So I appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
I don't have a very good memory. Madam Chair, members of the board, there is no Madam Chair. Hey, man, I'm just going to go back after that. Sorry, Dave.
All right.
A couple things just quickly to celebrate you and Meadows. We always do our one big fundraiser each year, the Walkathon, and it was a huge success. We actually raised more money than we've ever raised in our school, so kudos to our parents and our community members. We raised over $21,000. We're usually around 15, 16 grand or so we were really pleased with that. Money goes right back into things that kids see. So we're talking about, might seem like silly things, but we want to make school a fun, enjoyable place for our kids. We're talking about bounce houses that need to be replaced for kids, cotton candy machines, popcorn, like fun things for the kids, as well as equipment that a lot of our specials teachers use, right? So things that every student will get to benefit from. So that was a big success. Another thing that we're doing this year that I know the whole district, all the elementary schools, are doing, and we're excited about it, is a real deep dive into conscious discipline. Are any of you familiar with conscious discipline? So it really supports the social and emotional learning and development of our kids and our adults, right? So we appreciate our superintendents and especially Dr. Ingalls for supporting us on our half-day PD that we get in January. We're going to bring an expert in from Conscious Discipline to work with us. We are all doing a book study with not only certified staff, but our support staff as well. So each chapter kind of focuses on a different aspect of the whole child. So at schools, we have goals, and we measure, and we have steps we take around attendance and making sure kids are in school getting what they need. We have what our school-wide expectations are known as, and that's what we use for our PBIS system, our Be Safe, Be Respectful, Be Responsible. We set all kinds of academic goals, but missing for a while has been really an emphasis on SEL, social emotional learning, and COVID has really kind of exacerbated a lot of that, right, and lifted a lot of that to the surface. So as a school, I was proud of our staff to follow suit with what many of the other schools are doing, which is to say, we're going to do a book study and a real deep dive this year. It's not going to be around, we'll continue, of course, in the PLC process, and of course with our goals around HRS, but let's get smarter around SEL. And really what this is with Conscious Discipline, it's a focus on relationships with kids. And you can't have school-wide having Be Safe, Be Respectful, and Be Responsible in your schools only goes so far if you don't have relationships with kids. And that's not to say that just because we weren't doing Conscious Discipline before that we didn't have relationships with kids, but putting an emphasis on it this year will be a great thing. So maybe you'll hear more about that later on from the other elementary schools as well, but really excited to try and uplift that this year and have an expert come in and train us on that. And lastly, and this is really across the whole district too, I just have my own data in front of me, but I know for a fact that all of the elementary schools have seen this. With our PLC work, with our guaranteed and viable curriculum, And with the skills portion of our resource CKLA, we have seen tremendous gains in our kinder and first grade and second grade literacy scores. Last year, our kindergartners in the district, they came in to begin the year at, let's see, well, in my school anyway, they came in at 28%, and they are 28% at grade level. Right, at grade level where they need to be to begin the year. Only 28% of our kids were there. And this year, to begin the year, and it's a month in that they've received the test, are at 31%. But here's the kicker. To start the year at 28%, they finished at 92%. And I know we've celebrated that before, but arguably maybe some of the highest gains you'd see across the country, according to the folks who give that DIBELS or that M-class data. So fantastic to see our kindergarten teacher. I think the whole district was right around 90-something% as well. To begin the year in first grade this year, 76%. To start a year at 76% of our kids already at benchmark or above is outstanding. Last year we started at 52%. And our second graders reaping the benefits of that are almost at 60%. In the previous year we're about 48%. What we're going to see then is long-term gains. If we can be successful at these primary grades and these foundational phonemic awareness and phonics skills, we're going to see great gains into third, fourth, fifth grade and up into middle school. So just very proud of the work that's happening, and you've heard it right, the proof is in the pudding. So just really excited about that data at our primary grades now that we've got some fall benchmark data underneath our belts.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Anyone else? Anyone else? You going to address us?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so I also have a quick homecoming report. Everything came in really well this year, except for one thing, was that we had a lot of complaints from the students about having homecoming on a Friday night rather than the Saturday night. They felt it was too much in one day. As student body president, I can agree, it was way too much in one day. Football players were tired, and overall with day dates, they all just wanted to go on their day dates before the dance. And so they asked me to come ask you guys if it would be okay if from now on we had the homecoming dance on Saturday nights rather than Friday nights.
Yeah, we're not going to make a decision on that right now, obviously. I mean, so that's something that could be discussed later on, but at this time we have no opinion. It's going to be up to the schools.
Yeah, so it's actually not a school board decision.
It's not our decision. It's going to be up to the school itself. Merle?
So you guys work through Mr. Lester, right, as students, and then as with parents, right? So it has to be that combination.
We weren't the ones that made the decision on the setup this year either, so I appreciate you coming before us and asking us, but it truly is through your school that this needs to be handled, so.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And it is a big timing issue, because probably the biggest thing that needs to be done is schedules.
Yes.
Because the decision was made last year to have it on Friday, all the activities that are typically away on a homecoming game were here on Saturday. So we were able to get all the kids here for Friday. If you do it on Saturday, you can do the same thing, but you just have to schedule in advance. Those scheduling occurs in November, so we're still ahead of the game. But last year, that had been scheduled 2 years ahead of time, so we had to be that far ahead to get all those things scheduled for a Saturday. Mr. O'Neill has good relationships with the other schools, so we can work some of those things around. But that's probably the big question that we answered this year, is to get everyone home instead of away, which has happened in the past.
I think the only ones that were away was because of state golf.
Yes.
The scheduling on state golf. I think everybody else had the ability to be here, so.
Well, and I realize it helps some of the sports teams too, but I had a lot of complaints from parents who work during the day and were not able to attend the game, I being one of those. So I would prefer to have the game at night and then keep the dance on Saturday night, but like you said, that's just my opinion. It's really your school that has to make that determination, but I liked it better when you had the game at night.
Yeah.
I think you would have more adults attending.
The parade as well.
Yeah.
One other thing about that, I had one of the Trona Valley ladies come to me and mention that they had always done like a tailgate party before homecoming, which apparently raised a few $1,000s for the Booster Club every year, and they were not able to do that this year because they won't close the bank that early. So I don't know if that's something to consider too. I don't know enough about the funding in Booster Club, but
yeah, so I mean, I'm sure you probably had more students at the game than you probably normally have, but it's a toss-up if you want the adults there
What's interesting, and I only tried this for information, you guys are probably well aware, the reason why everything was on Friday, because that was the request from the previous year, that everything's on Friday and we put the dance on Friday, and so that they don't have the pressure of a day date on Saturday. That came from parents. So, again, we tried to accommodate what was wished, and one way or the other, someone's going to be unhappy.
So this is my opinion. I'm putting on my different hat, or different dress, according to somebody. So anyway, as a parent, the day date scared me to death. It did.
I don't like it either.
The kids get in with a group of people and they head down to the Wasatch Front. Kids traveling that aren't used to traveling in that kind of traffic. So as a parent, I'm just telling you, with my two daughters, it was kind of unnerving allowing them to go on that day date type thing. So, but anyway, that's a different hat. So anyway. Okay, we are sitting at about 6:20. Is there any other reports at all from the schools?
We can start the discussion items.
That's what I was wondering. So on the discussion items, as we go down through it, is there anything that is going to be that we can cover within 5 minutes?
We may be able to cover it all.
Oh, do you? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, discussion items. The school board conference on 11/17/19.
So we are looking for individuals who'd like to attend and also be delegates. Chairman Brackett will be attending, and she has agreed, if you guys are okay with her being one of the delegates. 2 delegates are allowed. The conference is truly a Wyoming conference put on by Wyoming school boards. We've had bad weather in the past. We've had good weather. We typically take a vehicle down, so I typically drive. We've had some interesting things occur on that, but we all came back alive. So the conference is really good because you get to sit with other Wyoming school board members and talk about issues that truly are not only unique here, but they're found everywhere. The same issues we're having, they're having throughout the state. So I would encourage, if you can attend, to attend. And of course, all costs are covered by the district, and we pay for your hotel room. And so we're looking for more to attend and another delegate.
Can we nominate delegates?
Yes, you can. If they're going to attend.
What are you looking at me for? Looking down this side over here. Somebody's sitting in this chair for a reason. So
we will leave on the 16th if you're a delegate, so we usually leave early in the morning. Delegate assembly starts, I think, 1. So anybody planning to attend?
I'll go.
There we go.
Are you talking to me, David?
No, I'm not talking to you.
I think you guys might be feeding cows.
So we have Dan and Jamie. Would you like to be a delegate?
Well, if we're the only 2 going, I guess that would be the procedure, so that's okay.
All right.
And you guys can make that decision, and
sure,
good to go.
Okay.
Okay. Next on discussion items, delegate assembly members. I guess we got her covered. So the transportation compliance requirements, I guess this is renewed annually?
Yeah, I don't see
George?
Mr. Dickerson, Director Dickerson, but this is something we do annually. What it does is it set aside the turnarounds and in the community, our bus stops, distances. Nothing's new in this document. It's basically that we're in compliance with state law, and I imagine state and federal law with transportation. But my recommendation is that you get a chance to approve it when it's up for approval.
Once we do our action items?
Yes.
Okay. That took up 3 minutes, Mr. Thomas.
You can do action items too.
Do them.
Yeah, we don't.
Well, do we want to do public comments?
That's different than the hearing. But
No, I know, but what I'm saying is if we have public comments coming up before, do we have enough time to cover public comments if they're longer than 4 minutes?
Probably not.
That's what I'm
So what you
saying.
may want to do is just reconvene and let's go into the public hearing.
Is there anybody opposed to going into the public hearing? It was scheduled to start at 6:30. It is now 6:26. Is there any opposition from the board or from anybody within the congregation?
We can take a 4-minute recess too.
Let's do that.
Take a 4-minute recess? Okay. Why don't we do that? Come back in here just before 6:30 and we'll convene the hearing. So, do I need to have a motion for a quick break? Okay, I need to have a motion to, okay, second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No. No opposition, so we will reconvene for 3 minutes. I guess I could have just recessed the meeting.
That's true.
You do whatever you want.
That's true.
I got a project starting in the middle of November, so I don't know where I'll be.
Well, I don't have a job, so. Why not?
My daughter's birthday, and she's gotten mad at me before when I
Yeah.
Huh?
my daughter's birthday.
Oh.
And I sent it before for her. That doesn't mean
Not another time, no.
Caleb, were you at the county building today? Was that you?
Was I at the county building? I was not.
You were not? I thought it was you. Somebody waved at me and they looked like you, but I was kind of dark and I couldn't see them, so.
I was hightailing to get down from the mountains, cutting firewood today.
I couldn't tell you. Did you see, can you realize it? That's
I know.
Oh, day.
That one's still more. Yeah.
Good once as I never was.
It's my senior this year.
So I'm gonna have to reconvene
That's
from
one
our
of the things we need to like
recess
put
to
in the
recess
center
our
of the circle and like put
regular meetings
like
and to
your like
convene.
last thing or something over it. Whenever time to
I just say, do it all at once.
I was going to, so when we reconvene and recess.
Convene in there.
Yeah.
Public hearing.
All righty, ladies and gentlemen, it is now 6:30. So I need to have a motion to reconvene our regular school board meeting and then to recess our regular school board meeting and then convene the hearing. on the notice to adopt rule CKA. I need a motion to approve all three.
So moved.
Second.
And a second. So Caleb and Jenny. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed?
Aye.
Ayes have it. So, I am going to call to order this meeting, this hearing, I guess. So I'm going to kind of read down through some things that apply to this hearing. So bear with me just a little bit. The public hearing to adopt new rules, CKA, and attachment CKA R1, CKA R2, CKA R3, and CKA R4, authorizing district personnel to conceal, carry a firearm on district property pursuant to Wyoming State Statute 21-3-132. Interested persons may present data, views, or arguments regarding this intended action orally at this public hearing. All speakers must speak into the microphone and give their names and addresses. All comments should be addressed to the hearing body, should be relevant to the proposed adoption of the rule, and should not be of a personal nature. We will not set time limits for comments, but we request that you keep your comments brief and avoid repetitive comments. If there are a large number of speakers, including many who are part of groups or organizations, we ask for a representative to speak on behalf of the organization or group. Unruly behavior, such as booing or hissing or harassing remarks, is discouraged. Okay, we will now hear your comments. One thing I want to mention again. Board members do not respond to comments offered by the public at this meeting. The board members will have an opportunity to respond later. It is open to the public.
Is it just on that roll or just anything?
Nope, right now it's just the rule.
Oh, okay.
It's not anything right now. That will come later. So this is just a hearing on the CKA rule. So.
Good evening. David Bennett, 230 Bodine. Been there quite a few years. I didn't want to expect myself to be first, but I guess everybody else is scared of the policy one way or the other. My concerns, being on the board for 8 years, and we've kicked the tires on this over and over again, and really this policy has to do with two sides of a coin. One side is that you believe that if someone is concealed carry, that someone is going to damage our students. Because this is about student safety. It's one more tool that we have in our district to deter, as far as I'm concerned, deter someone from shooting. If I go into a facility and there's a sign saying people are armed but you don't know who, I have to think about that a little bit. That's just going to be a deterrent. That's all this is. And so the other side of that coin are those that believe that employees of the district have been trained and have the knowledge, and best, I could say, is that as a board and as our superintendent, we trust those individuals to defend or protect their students. Now, we're not asking those individuals to go out and be the vigilante if there's a shooter in the school. We're asking them to stay put, defend the students that they're in charge of. I don't know why that's so difficult. So my other thinking in this is that if we're afraid of armed trained, concealed carried individuals being employees of the school carrying guns, then really we're afraid of policemen carrying guns. Because the training is similar, may not be to that extent, but it's similar, and we do take the time to figure out whether these people can handle it or not. Mr. Thomas has been through it. He knows what I'm talking about. We have taken, I don't know how many years and how much money, kicking the tires, the taxpayers' money, for what? To come up with the fact we have no policy at all, no deterrent. Who's the winner in that? The state of Utah has had concealed carry in their school districts for a long time. They haven't had much problems. I don't see that as a problem. I think we're talking about two different philosophies here, and that's really the biggest issue. And I'm still a strong supporter of a policy, as you well know. I probably would have ran for the board again, but 8 years was enough. Bless Jenny. But I do want you to know that I have grandkids in the system. I would feel very comfortable, whoever you give that honor and responsibility to be concealed carry. The interesting part about it is, people may not know, but the board doesn't even know who's concealed carry. We have that ownership goes to the superintendent and those principals. Am I correct?
The board does approve, so they...
Right, but I mean, okay, yeah, I haven't, it's interesting because right now it's not a great number. It would be more because if we had more people interested in what's going on. As far as throughout the state, everybody's seeing what Evanston's going to do. So people, that's my stand, and I will stand with it, that concealed carry for our district is a good thing to have, and I would like to see more employees get on board, but I know it's a lot of effort and expense on their part. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett.
Good evening. I'm Lynn Fox. I live at 217 Rimrock, and I appreciate you giving me a chance to make a verbal presentation to you. In the past, you've had some hearings, and I have submitted some written comments. I'm not in favor of adopting this rule. I have not been convinced in my research or in anything I've seen conveyed by the board itself that this is the best policy to protect our students. I know that that is ultimately the goal that's intended by this, but I'm not certain that this is what we need to protect our students. I just listened to Mr. Bennett discuss the purpose of this, which is as a deterrent, and I feel like that's how it's been addressed, as a deterrent. And I don't know if you have in your mind taken it all the way down the road to when there's an active shooter in the school, what happens? And that's what frightens me. You have laid out some training, you have laid out some protection of the identity, you're putting a sign up perhaps that says this is going to happen to you if you come in here with a weapon, but let's say all of those things transpire and we get to the point that we have an active shooter in the school. We have teachers whose job it is to teach our students. And we're asking them to suddenly become law enforcement personnel involved in an active shooting. There's been some studies done, and you can find them yourselves. There was one done in 2008 that showed that actual trained law enforcement personnel involved in an active shooting have an accuracy rate of 18 to 43%. That's all. This is trained professional law enforcement. Now, you're going to ask your geography teacher, your social studies teacher, whoever it may be, to do better than that in that situation. I believe it shows that there is so much possibility of mayhem, of unintended consequences, of true damage being done during the incident itself, and in the long-range psyche of the people involved. If you're going to ask a teacher to do that, how do they live with that after the fact? Just asking you to see this further down the road than as a deterrent. What if it actually takes place? What are you asking your teachers to do and your staff to do? I know that you have people who are willing to do it, but have they truly put themselves in that position to understand what that might mean? Thank you for giving me the time to present that to you.
Thank you, Mrs. Fox.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Tiffany Eskelson Maestas, 217 Topance Drive. Appreciate the opportunity to stand before you regarding this policy. So all of our feelings associated with the fear of an active shooter in one of our schools, of course, are real and valid, even when the likeliness of it occurring is small in comparison to other safety-related issues our kiddos are facing. Any chance, though, of it occurring is unsettling. I know that we all have the same outcome in common, right? Safer school environments for staff and students, especially so as they live so much of their lives in each school setting. As a board, you all have a lot to hold in policy consideration of well-being, especially within a public instruction, a public structure of education, while also navigating public concern and also your own concern around student and staff safety. So like some of you, I was raised in the school district. I'm raising kids in the school district. And one of the areas of learning that my kids are being taught, just as I was, is how to research. And when I think back to some of the research I had to do in my classes, thinking of specific teachers, how they turned something in that created an opinion or a solution that wasn't reflective of the research, it would have come back to me either for further analysis, for corrections, or even not a great grade on it. So in all of this, like the last 3 years, mostly what I've struggled with is not being able to find in your records the use of best research and evidence explicitly supporting this policy as a best solution to increase safety within our schools. So I believe that we can build stronger and safer school communities together by developing and adopting a responsible approach for policy development and program implementation that increases the likeliness of our shared outcome, safer school environments. As I hope we all know, this kind of responsible management also requires explicit and careful planning as it relates to policy development, to implementation, and then to monitoring. So I'm a big believer that communities hold all the solutions. And sometimes what is a perceived solution comes with challenges, its own problems, unintended consequences, which is why I believe it's important to have a responsible management process in place to identify those problems, potential challenges, and possible unintended consequences. And at the same time, uses all of the best evidence available to develop the best solutions that increase the likeliness of our shared outcome. So as we stand now, and for the last 3 years, I don't believe that this policy, Rule CKA, is one of the best solutions based on current research and recommendations, all of which you've had access to. The very issue of an active shooter in one of our schools is a symptom of more complex issues coming together that would bring someone to that place. And when, excuse me, and when issues are complex, all of us tend to lean towards only controlling the issue itself, which is what I think this policy attempts to do, rather than addressing the complexity associated with it or the complexity of it in the first place, head on. Every one of us in this room tonight has practice in bringing new ideas to life, honing them in, and then working towards any type of improvement that needs to happen with them. So we can all apply creativity and resourcefulness together to strengthen the likeliness of our shared outcome of safer schools through a process that includes innovative policy and strategy development, flexibility then to address the complexity that would come with it, and implementing higher quality efforts based in best research related to active school shootings. And in such, it could actually also complement other school safety policies and programming and further other desired outcomes to well-being and safety while making the best use of our resources. Just like I was taught in this district, right? Best research. So, as I have in the past, I continue all to encourage you all to use the best research and evidence related to active school shootings to further our shared intention of safer schools in place of continual adoption of Rule CKA. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
K. Fackrell, 1848 West Anderson. I just wanted to come to a meeting tonight. There was no football on. I didn't even know this was on the agenda. I sat on where you're sitting for 8 years. I taught for 39 years in the schools, 32 years here. And you can find all kinds of research, which I feel as a board, when we first enacted this, we did all of that. Looked at a lot of things. We did create other ways to protect our students that have been implemented in the schools, lots of training to teachers. And I learned something from my time on the board, that very first serious vote, I think it was 7-2, wasn't Mr. Thomas? And I voted against it. Didn't like the policy. I had some reservations myself. I've been around firearms my whole life, and but I went out in the public. There were 3 people, and I'm out in the public a lot. There were 3 people, including one that writes us a lot, that thanked me for voting against the policy. There must have been 60 asked me, what the hell is wrong with you? And I kind of learned a lesson. Maybe when you sit up here, you have to not always vote the way you feel. It's kind of like when the city council, we have districts, and we used to in the school board. Maybe we should know more about how the bulk of people feel. And I know that's the purpose of the hearing, but nothing ever really comes out until you get out in the public and walk around the streets, and when those people come and want to know why you would vote against this, so it changed my attitude about this. And then, of course, we had a couple miserable springs since then, so thank you.
Candace Reichenberg, 119 Aspen Grove Drive West. I actually agree with it because I was actually in high school whenever the Columbine incident hit, and there was 15 deaths. And sitting there in school and having to watch all that go down while you're sitting there in school and you wonder, well, are we going to be next? What if that kid, you know, reminds me of the one that went and shot at that school, or that kid reminded me of that kid, you know? And you just think of all these things. And now you think, okay, well, now we have an opportunity to have some of our teachers have that on hand. Would there have been less deaths? Could some of those teachers have taken down those shooters at Columbine, and could 15 of those people still be alive, those students? Could they have kids that are graduating right now? You know, where would they be today if those teachers would have had guns to protect their students? And me as a parent and having kids in school and having nieces and nephews, I feel safer. And the majority of our community are hunters. They've grown up hunting. They've been trained how to use it. They are comfortable with it. They know when is the right way to use it, when, you know, what could be a deadly shot, what could be just an injury. And you can tell, okay, could I shoot somebody, you know, right here, and their weapon would be out of the way, and then we could get them and restrain them until the police came to save the life of all of these students. And if I would have gone on to school and before I got injured to be a math teacher, I would have been one of those teachers that would have a concealed weapon on me, because I would rather sacrifice and have the chance to sacrifice my life or take down a predator to save the children that I am teaching and protecting. Because even now I'm a tutor and I treat every single one of those people that I tutor as one of my own children, and I would protect them with my life. And I treat them just as I do my own. And just like I do all my kids as friends, they come in, they're like, hey Mom, I would protect them with my life too. And I know a lot of these teachers that they have concealed, you know, they want to do that and they want to carry these concealed weapons. In my opinion, that's how they're thinking. If I could save all of these children to take down that one, where could they go? They could go and they could become president. They could make a difference in the world. So you've got to think of the positives rather than the negatives on that. And I know a lot of kids, especially like, you know, teenagers and stuff, you know, I know the little bitty ones, they don't know any different because they're too small to. Unless they've gone through a traumatic incident, like at home or something, or they've been in an abusive situation. But for years after my divorce, I wondered, okay, is my ex going to come to the school and try and take my kids and force them out? And my ex-husband was a very abusive person. And even though he doesn't live in the state anymore, I don't know when he's going to come back. I had no contact with him for 15 years. But I still, to this day, I have that. He could come into the school and they wouldn't even know who he was. And he could go anywhere he wanted. Or you could say, hey, you know, I'm checking out this person because on all the documents, on their birth certificates, he is the legal father. He is on their birth certificates still, even though I changed their last names to my new last name. But I would feel so much safer having those teachers carrying those to protect my children, even from somebody that helped bring them into that world. Or, you know, the sexual predators out there. We had one last year that went to prison in our town. And it could have been prevented. And he wasn't a coach in the school district, but he was a coach in this town for the bowling alley. And he didn't get as much time because he was not a coach in the school district. And that's what the judge said. He would have gotten more time if he was in the school district as a coach. And that infuriated me. But my children will be graduating soon. My daughter's a senior and my son's a junior. But I still have kids. My nieces and nephews are still young. I'm going to have grandkids one day, and we have to think of their futures and make sure that they're safe. There are kids that are terrified. They would rather be at school and they feel safer at school than they do at home. And it would even make them a little bit safer knowing, hey, my teacher has my back. So if my parent comes in here and try to put their hands on me or drag me out, my teacher's going to stop them at whatever force they have to protect me. Because we don't know all the situations that are going on out there at home. And not every single kid is coming to their teachers and their counselors and their principals and telling them because they're terrified or they've been threatened, don't you dare say anything. So we have to think of that. We have to think of the children and their safety before our own. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good evening. Can you hear me okay? My name's Monica Vozakis. I live at 196 Kingfisher. And I have to tell you that it's a little terrifying that we would think that our teachers would use lethal force in a situation that's not lethal force. And that is concerning when I hear scenarios like that. But what I want to talk about, and I think that we've talked about this in the past, but like, how do you make a decision on something like this? Do you use fear-based decision-making, or do you use evidence-based decision-making? I would encourage you to use evidence-based decision-making. You know, Winston Churchill said, those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. And I think that that's particularly relevant in, as I contemplate Rule CKA. There is a history with this rule. It started when there was a new statute, and by all means that statute was troubling to a lot of people in the state, and there was lots of school districts that decided not to take the bait that the legislature had offered. It started with a small group of people that were told to make a policy. There wasn't a discussion about whether there should be a policy, right? And that's a key thing that should have happened right at the beginning that just didn't. The outcome was predetermined. And then it seemed very important that we be the first district in the state to pass it. Heard that several times in several different mediums. And so it seemed like there was a rush to get it passed instead of stepping back, making sure it was right for our students. There was even comments that it was a work in progress and that after it passed that we could figure out some of the logistics. Again, that's scary to me, and I think that that erodes public trust, that we don't really know what we're going to do with it, but we'll figure it out as we go, and hopefully we figure it out before someone gets seriously hurt or killed. And there was significant expense. There was locked boxes that were bought that the State Board of Education said were dangerous to put firearms in, but we purchased them. And again, it was kind of demonstrating that we were reacting out of fear rather than looking at even what the State Board of Education was saying. And rather than reacting we needed to take a step back and determine what was most likely to keep our students safe. And these concerns were all raised to the district at the time of that initial passing. And when the district did not consider them, not respond to them, it forced the discussion from a public meeting where we can talk and have open dialogue into the courts. And you know that the court determined that this policy affects a fundamental right of students. And that the district failed to follow the law when it didn't go through the rulemaking process. So then we go to the second chance, right? The second go-round. And that was definitely a more stringent approach, more meetings, comments, but the same concerns were again raised: training requirements, effectiveness, safety, accommodations for students who are not comfortable being in the presence of a gun. Most of the evidence that was submitted was just disregarded. There was a lot of evidence from a lot of organizations that deal with schools, that deal with children, that say that it's not safe to arm a teacher. And rather than, again, taking a step back and saying, okay, we're going to look at this with neutral, evidence-based approach, we push forward. Now, ignoring the evidence is not appropriate in rulemaking. The role of the board is that of an agency. And an agency cannot make arbitrary and capricious decisions. It must be based on evidence. And again, when that failed to happen and the concerns were not addressed, it went back into the courts. And again, instead of having an open dialogue and trying to figure out what's best for our school district and our students, we're letting a court decide it. Now, the court ultimately determined that the school district again failed to follow the statute. Importantly, the court didn't reach the other decisions. There were procedural and substantive and constitutional decisions that were before the court. But the court doesn't have to reach those because it could easily say the school district didn't follow the statute and move on. But the district knows of those issues now. It's not like this is a new thing. All of those issues still should be addressed before a rule is passed. And I mention this painful history not because, you know, I think that the board is again at the crossroads, and they can make a decision whether they're going to consider the evidence that's been presented, whether they're going to act as a neutral agency and make decisions based on that evidence, or whether they would like to repeat history over and over again. You know, will there be an evaluation of what will make our students safer? And I have to say, like, I appreciate so much how far we've come. When we first started this conversation, none of the doors at the high school were locked. I mean, all of those things that we've improved to make our kids safe are very good, and I appreciate that all of you have worked to make our kids safer. Now we're looking at this specific piece and how does it fit into the puzzle. And what's the most effective and cost-efficient way to make that safety and make our kids safer? Now I've heard, and I've heard at several board meetings where people say, well, the litigation is frivolous and it's technicalities. And that is concerning to me because when the court says that the district has failed to follow the law, if you're saying that following the law is frivolous or a technicality, then that's a basic misunderstanding of the law. And it's also overlooking the fact that people are trying to tell you their concerns and they're falling on deaf ears. And at some point, it also becomes fiscally irresponsible to continue down this road where we're not making progress, where we're just repeating the same thing and not making any progress. You know, there's statewide talk. You guys hear about it a lot more than I do about school funding, and that's not going anywhere. And the scrutiny on spending is only going to continue. So unless there's a measured approach that this policy gives us this and it's worth the money that we spend versus hiring another resource officer or doing some other thing to make our kids safe. How much safety does it provide, and what's the cost of that safety? Now, I'm not saying that there's a limit on we need to make our kids safe, but if there's only if there's no evidence that it increases our safety, and in fact, a lot of the evidence shows that it makes our kids less safe to be in a classroom with a gun. And so are we actually reaching what we are desired and what the rule is required? Finally, we can talk about accommodations for students who are not comfortable. We can talk about the ammunition standards. In the court, the district represented, if they'd only known about the ammunition standards, that they would have fixed it. Well, you now know, and it hasn't changed, and that's concerning. You can talk about the effect of having an armed employee on the mental and physical health of the students. And all of those are in detail and in comments. But, the one issue that is and continues to be very troubling to me is the training and whether the training is sufficient. You've received a lot of evidence about the related training requirements. I strongly encourage you not to just dismiss it because it doesn't fit with what your current opinions are. If we're expecting district employees to act as law enforcement in one of the most difficult situations that law enforcement officer can ever face, district employee needs training that are equivalent to that of law enforcement. Otherwise, we're setting them up to fail. And their failure results or could result in the death of our children, our teachers, or other law enforcement officers. They need to be trained on how to handle those situations. It's not enough just to meet the bare minimum requirements of the statute. You need evidence that the training that you're proposing in the rule relates to the goal that you're trying to achieve. And the rule talks of completing or participating in training. And I don't believe that's enough. If we're going to put a gun in a teacher's hand in a school, they need to be proficient at that. You heard Lynn Fox talk about the low rates of accuracy for trained law enforcement. I can't think that we can expect better when our teachers have minimal training. And that they haven't shown that they're proficient in those sorts of situations. Now, I noticed today that the training requirement for a school bus driver is 40 hours each year, and they perform that job on a regular basis. Now, that, again, is safety. You're giving a school bus teacher more training than you're giving someone with a weapon in our schools. So I would ask that you consider the evidence in the record, and I believe that if you do so in the neutral role that you're supposed to be playing as an agency, that you will see that there is insufficient evidence to support Rule CKA and what it will accomplish. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Paul Dean, and I live in the city of Evanston, and I'm a former police officer, firearms instructor. I worked for the State of Wyoming Department of Corrections, Probation and Parole, and was a substitute teacher. My address is 619 Saunders Circle in Evanston. I do not envy you guys your position up there. That's why I voted for, I think, every single one of you at one point or another. Mr. Bennett lived across the street from me for a while, and I consider him a good friend. Coach Fackrell, I've known him for 70 years. So one thing I find ironic about this is when I worked for the Department of Probation and Parole, we dealt with convicted felons. Violent convicted felons. Had one guy from Kemmerer that had murdered his wife, killed his wife. We weren't allowed to carry guns, but yet we're going to let teachers carry them on school grounds. When I was a cop, we would go to the state hospital and help those folks out once in a while, and we were required to leave our guns in the car. But yet we're going to
ask our teachers, some of them, not all of them, to carry guns. So I find that a little bit ironic, a little bit funny, that some places were not letting them where they could maybe possibly be used, and then going to a place where, well, they could possibly be used. And I understand, after Columbine, our training at the police department and across the nation, across the world changed. We no longer sat outside and set up a perimeter. We were told to engage as quickly as we can, and the statistics will bear it out. The quicker you can engage, the less carnage there's going to be. And I know most of the teachers up there, and there's some of them I think could probably handle themselves in that situation, but a few. But I think we're asking a lot of them to do more than they really know what they're getting themselves into. But we tug at our hearts and we want our kids to be safe. I just wish it wasn't with a gun. From what I heard up here, what we need is more cops. Not more teachers with guns. We need more cops. We need a full-time patrol officer, somebody walking the halls or something. But what concerns me the most is the safety of the students when you bring a gun into the building. You bring a gun into any situation, the situation becomes more dangerous, more volatile. Trained police officers have accidental discharges. Happens with the Evanston Police Department when I was on there. It's happened with the Uinta County Sheriff's Office. I was taking a class from Clarence Vranish, you all know. He was teaching a concealed weapons class. I was working, we got to take the class, but we had to take calls during the class. Some guy came home, was a concealed weapons instructor from traveling, pulled his gun out. How do you tell if a gun's loaded or not? Well, you pull the trigger. Boom, blew the wedding picture right off the mantle of him and his wife, goes through the wall into the neighbor's house. This guy was a concealed weapons firearms instructor, and I'm not going to drop any names. Several of you up there own guns. Are they laying on the kitchen table today, or are they secured so nobody can get a hold of them and we can have an accidental discharge or anything like that? So tough decision for you guys. Teachers being armed, there is a degree of safety that's going to be obtained there, but I think that safety is lost by bringing a gun into a classroom. I wish there was something else. I had 2 daughters go up there. I still go to the football games, basketball games. I don't know what the answer is. I'm glad I voted for you guys to make that decision. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair Peterson, members of the board, Superintendent Thomas, here we are again. I appreciate your patience and your understanding.
For the record, I need your name and address.
Yes, Tim Beppler, 636 12th Street.
Thank you.
Okay. I appreciate your patience over the last, over 4 years. We've been talking about this. I appreciate the fact that you have listened. But one of the regrets, and I'll share a couple of comments, I'm not going to repeat. The submittals, you know, we've made are extensive. The studies are extensive. You need to read those if you haven't already. But I want to share a couple of comments, and I want to talk about the training issue a little bit. Although you've had these forums where we come and talk to you, and then you have a couple of meetings later where you make comments back, that, in my mind, is not a dialogue. We have not had an interaction with you about this issue from day one. In fact, your initial study committee didn't have that discussion because they were directed to draft a policy, not discuss whether they should have a policy or not. And I regret that because I think that perhaps somewhere along the line, we could have had a better result than this type of back and forth that we've gotten into. The second thing that I wanted to mention is that from the very beginning, I also regret the fact that even though law enforcement was involved in the initial discussions and a part of your study committee, that they were neutralized as far as giving an opinion on whether you should have this policy or not. And if you don't believe me, I'll just hand to Mr. Thomas the minutes of the very first small committee meeting. Both police and sheriff will remain neutral on policy. That's not right. There should have been a dialogue with police. There are many police officers, one of whom spoke to you tonight, and others who I know, who I've spoken to in this community, who don't support this policy. There are police officers throughout the state of Wyoming who have voiced their opposition to this type of policy. You've received testimony from experts nationally who don't support this policy. You received a brief from the Fraternal Order of Police of Ohio, who went before the Ohio Supreme Court and said, we don't support this policy. That's a dialogue you should have had. You haven't had it. You have an opportunity now to maybe go back and have that dialogue, but not if you rush forward and adopt this policy, as I expect you're probably going to consider doing, maybe even as early as next month. I'd like to re-emphasize one point that Monica made to you. And it kind of echoes what my friend Kay was talking to you about. I know that you live in a community where you talk to other people. You may have an opinion about what, quote-unquote, most people think about this policy. I don't think you really know that there are a lot of people who have voiced opposition to this policy, and you know that too. But when you're sitting on a decision to adopt what's called a substantive rule, which is what the very first court decision told you you had to do, you are no longer acting as elected representatives of this community. It's not up to you to go out and test the wind. It's up to you to test the administrative record and say, is there evidence in this record that supports our adoption of this rule, regardless of whatever anybody else might say. That's your role in this decision-making. The training requirement. I can't tell you the number of studies and information that have been submitted to you that establish that 24 hours of initial training and 11 hours of annual training is wholly insufficient to even achieve the goals that you want to achieve. You have states like Florida that experienced the Parkland shooting. They require over 136 hours of training for their school marshals. You have school districts in the state of Wyoming that require almost 60 hours of training before they allow staff in their school districts to be teaching. You have the state of Ohio that used to have multiple school districts with armed teachers and staff. They now have to have over 700 hours of training. The training needs to be sufficient to reach the goals. And as I was preparing for tonight, I was reviewing some of your old minutes. And I went back to a pretty fateful meeting, in my opinion. It was June 20th, 2017. And the initial discussion, I'm sure Ryan remembers it well, about should we go down this road? Should we even put together a committee? The school association of the state was suggesting, because the statute had passed, that districts consider doing this. And at that meeting, your current chairman, Bracken, said this, and I quote from the minutes: "She does not have an issue with teachers carrying guns in schools, but for non-law enforcement people, they need to have the same training as law enforcement. She wants the policy to be more specific on what kind of training we will have. With the responsibility of having a weapon, there should be stringent training and requirements for permission to carry. I think your chair was right at that meeting. Your teachers should have training almost equivalent to law enforcement before you allow them to carry guns in school. So look at your record. Please go back and reconsider whether your rule meets that goal. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Member.
Good evening. My name is Andy Bailey. I live at 217 Rimrock Drive. And unlike Mr. Fackrell, who said he was here because there was no football game on, well, I'm here in spite of the fact that the Yankees are playing the Red Sox in a one-game playoff. And I'm missing that. So, as to not leave you in suspense, I will state up front that I am adamantly opposed to teachers or school staff carrying guns in schools. I can see nothing good that would come of it. I do not think, as Mr. Bennett said, that it is a deterrent. Because if you have an individual who is deranged enough that he wants to go into a school and shoot the heck out of it, then whatever signs he sees on his way into the building will make no difference. Now, I also have a degree in education. I've taught school for several years, many years ago. And of all the teachers that I taught with, I don't think there was a one who would be capable of having a successful outcome in an active shooter scenario. I think you really, really need to picture what it would be like to be a teacher in a classroom with an active shooter scenario, and it's up to you to pull out your weapon and stop it. It's just, it blows my mind that that is even something that you consider to be a good idea. I know that all of you have probably been in stressful situations where it was a fight of some kind, maybe not physical, but maybe verbal, and the excitement level and the fear that takes over at that point renders you in a position of you can't make good decisions. But yet, I keep thinking about a third grade female teacher, and I hate to pick on girls, but a third grade female teacher with 40 hours of training pulling out a handgun and stopping an active shooter. Nothing good could come of that. Something horrible would happen. So I beg you, think about this tonight when you go home and over the next week or two. Is this really a good idea? So I can see why you're concerned. You want to save, children's lives. You want to protect our students, our pupils. And I don't think this is the way. But if you really want to make a difference in at least one or two people's lives, I'll give you a good suggestion. Take away their driver's licenses and their car keys. Because I don't know if any student in Evanston has ever been shot at school. But I'll guarantee you, the kids that are in the 7th grade today and in Evanston schools, by the time they graduate from high school, they will have at least one friend that they know who was killed in a car accident. So, okay, Go Yankees.
Thank you, Andy. Okay. If there's anybody else out there that wants to come make a comment, please come forward. If not, then we're going to adjourn from this meeting. So,
So is this public comment time?
no, I'll let you know in just a minute, so. Okay, I know, get patience. We'll get there. So, if there are no more comments, the public hearing to adopt new rules, CKA and attachments, CKA R1, CKA R2, CKA R3, CKA R4, authorizing district personnel to conceal carry a firearm on district property pursuant to Wyoming State Statute 21-3-132 is now closed. I need a motion to adjourn this public hearing.
Second.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Need a second. We get a second?
Yeah, we had a second over here, so.
Sorry.
Okay. Okay, the next step in this process will be the board to respond to all the comments that have been submitted. This will be done at the next scheduled board meeting in November. Thank you very much, everybody. So, next on the agenda. Oh, I need a motion to reconvene the regularly scheduled board meeting.
Second.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you. All right, so we're back into the regularly scheduled board meeting. Now we are allowed to have public comments. We'll move on to public comments. By the way, I like your cat.
Thank you. He's my service animal.
Oh, nice.
His name's Rocky. Do I need to say my name again?
Yes, please.
Okay, Candace Reichenberg. And my address again?
Yes, please.
Okay, 119 Aspen Grove Drive West.
Thank you.
And I wanted to kind of talk about the graduation.
Okay.
It's always been a tradition to do it in the mornings. A lot of the reason why we don't do it at night is because a lot of, like, your grandparents and stuff, they're ready for bed at that time. They want to be able to come and see you guys graduate. I know my mother-in-law and stuff, she's almost 80 years old. She will not leave the house after 7 o'clock at night. She won't even come over to dinner if we're going to be past a certain time at night. She's like, nope, maybe next time. And a lot of it has to do with, like medical reasons. So you got to think of not just because you guys want to do fireworks or, 10 o'clock is too early to be at the school or, whatever your reasons being, you got some things you got to stick with tradition. And like he was saying, I think he said Krista Barker, she's already made plans. People have already, booked places and times and everything for their parties. The whole thing is, you go and graduate, your family comes in from out of town and stuff, they go and they see you graduate, and then afterwards you go and you party and you have fun, you have your celebration with them, and then you're on your way. So maybe a good idea, instead of, and then also, it's springtime. It's not like here where now it's night. It doesn't get dark, starting to get dark until 10 o'clock at night. So fireworks at night, that'd be super late to do, because you wouldn't even be able to see them that good if you do it that late. So maybe, do the normal graduation stuff and just have it to where all the seniors come and get back together and do fireworks at the end of the night. Or get together at the E and just celebrate it for the whole entire town. Or have something to where, if you want to do it on a Friday night, have like a big barbecue out with just the seniors. A big, celebration, and do fireworks the night before. Like a last hurrah before you go across that stage. Just like some suggestions on that. And have it like a more personalized thing instead of, for just the seniors, instead of that.
Am I allowed to respond? Okay. So I actually did agree with you personally that I did not like it at night just for the sake of people coming. But the thing that I really didn't like is our students overall didn't get much of a explanation of what it would mean if we did it in the morning versus the night, or night versus the morning. I think the more that they thought about other people coming into town, they would probably be more willing to do morning, and I actually do agree. My original thought was to also have fireworks Friday night, and then Saturday morning continue with a regular graduation.
Yep. And it can't, just, maybe have like everybody bring something and have like a big barbecue or big cookout, or, and then do fireworks.
So that is...
Or something, like just, and I can go with over, plenty of ideas with you if you want to kind of bring to the, because I don't think that, because I think kids, the seniors and stuff, they're like, oh, this would be cool and this would be fun, but they're not thinking of, their parents and their grandparents and their uncles and their aunts, and, because it's not just, the saying, it takes a village to raise a child. They're not thinking that, they're thinking of, themselves and what they would like. They're not thinking of the whole community. And I mean community as, the family unit. And I know that a lot of things, they like tradition. And I know a lot of people, like, he's going to be there. I don't think he wants to be there that late at night. He wants to be home with his family.
That's my bedtime, too.
See? So you got to think of the people that are handing out that stuff, too, and I don't think any of the other students are thinking about that.
I don't.
They're very being like, they kind of have tunnel vision like you guys do with driving sometimes, you don't see anything around you except for straight ahead.
Lester will get a group together and we'll have
Yeah.
discussion, so we got lots of discussion ahead of us before decisions.
But you know where I live, I can give you some ideas, we can,
But yes, I actually was planning on talking with Mr. Lester and discussing other ideas, alternatives, and then getting a small group together and giving them all of the facts rather than just think of yourself type of thing.
Yeah. But I can help you out. You know where I live, just down the street. But
thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're looking at me. Is there any other comments? Mr. Bennett.
Mr. Bennett, 230 Bodine. First off, I'd like to thank you folks for listening to us over and over again, discussing those particular issues that we discussed. I just have a couple of things. I think that one thing that was never brought up in all that discussion, and I'll make this real quick, was that our employees that have one word we didn't use, they choose to be that person. And that means that's a whole different ballgame. And I bet in all the employees we got, if we've got a dozen, it'd be a miracle. So that's something I want you to think about. The other thing I want you to think about, or I question about, has anybody come to you or been talking about critical race theory at all? CRT? Was hearing any of that? Not coming out of the schools were good, as far as you know?
Well, not coming out of the schools.
Right.
I just hear people say you can't define critical race theory, so there's no such thing. So.
Well, the trouble is, there is something going on, but I just want to know if that's...
We have very strict state standards, and the board has to approve
I know.
curriculum. And
You're not getting any dialogue? No. Okay. Well, I'm just concerned about that because...
That was something that was brought up at the very beginning by Mr. Thomas, before the school even started, and he put a squash on any kind of rumors that might have started at that point. So.
And that would be good to be put out to the public, because I don't know what they know, but we don't get very many people to a school board meeting, as you well know, and the only time we have is when we're going to close the pool or a policy. The interesting thing about this policy is it actually erupted because the Governor Meade was the one that vetoed the policy that was passed by both the House and the Senate on gun-free zones. And so they came back and came up with this opportunity for a district to come up with this. So I don't think that's going to go away. But anyway, you know I'm opinionated. I always have been. I ran a high school for a lot of years, one of my students back there. But we have to take a stand, whatever we do. Right or wrong, take a stand. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett. Any other comments? I really thought I was going to get us out of here in an hour. I did do so well, so I know, I felt miserably, so I'm not going to do it again. We'll get out of here before 8. Trust me, we're there. So if there's no more public comments, we'll move on to the action items. Okay, on the action items, on the nurse, is that the one personnel for the?
There is no personnel.
There is no personnel, so, okay, so
we'll just go to
the nurse was already approved, so there's no personnel on there. Transportation compliance requirements, we had that document given to us.
Madam Chair, just...
Give me a dress. Give me a little makeup or something.
Mr. Vice Chair, members of the board, just a quick review of what that document is, what you're approving. Number one, exceptions for travel on private property. We have to get permission of the private property to travel on that private property, and that's contained in the document. 2, exceptions for red light warning rules. There are places that we do not run our reds because it's safe, we don't have to. Other places we do, so that's in the document. Exceptions to the minimum walking distance rule. We have some that have an exception to that, so we put that in there. Isolation payment list, which is also in that document, and then the approved bus routes. So that's what this is approving. We do it every year.
So do I have a motion to approve the transportation compliance requirement?
Yes, sir. So moved.
Who was?
Moved on and second, and I need to have a vote on it. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Ayes have it. Next.
Mr. Vice Chair.
Thank
members
you.
of the board, I recommend that you approve the stipulation agreement that was discussed in executive session.
Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Ayes have it. So, next, we will move on to the board roundtable. Any comments from the board at this time?
Yes, I have a comment.
Okay.
I would, as a school board member and as on the committee for the Evanston High Hall of Fame, I would like to thank Superintendent Thomas and UNT County School District for the support that they give us. I would also like to thank Dr. Ingalls for the timely and very gracious comments that he made at our banquet. Thank you. And it was a great success and something that I hope we can perpetuate for a long time.
It is absolutely amazing. If you have not attended, everybody that goes through it, everybody has the exact same comment. This is absolutely amazing. And one of the ones that we inducted this year, what happens to be my classmate, and I had no idea, was a general. And I had no idea he was that successful in the military. Steve Alkire. Yep, General Alkire. So, anyway, it's just amazing to find out what people have accomplished that have come to this community, and it's all based upon this community and what it provides our students. And thank you very much, administration and teachers and the people that have put forth and the sacrifice to make that happen. So, thank you very much.
What I would like to see, in addition to what we've done, because it's amazing, is I'd like to get those biographies and put them on our website.
Yes.
Because as you read through the talent and the individuals that have come through this community, it's truly amazing. And if you can go up, you can read those bios in the gym, but I think we need to put them on the website, make them more accessible, because they are extremely impressive.
I was going to come to you this week and see if we could work something out, so that's great.
Great minds think alike.
Yeah, they do. Yep.
We have several doctors, but we actually have a student that came from here who's the head of the cardiology department at the University of Utah. I mean, just, you could just go down the list of the accomplishments, so, anyway.
Instructs admirals how to run their nuclear submarines.
Yes.
Yes, exactly, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yep.
so,
Yeah, and we've gone back in time. This year, there were two class of 1941 individuals who we honored. Obviously, both those individuals have passed away. It was a posthumous award, but we're trying to do more of that to recognize excellence of people that aren't with us anymore, so.
and thank you, Dan, for all the time and commitment you put into that, so thank you very much. If there's no other discussion, 20 minutes early, I need a motion to adjourn the Union County School District Number 1 Board meeting.
I'll make that motion.
Second, I have a motion, a first and a second. And I guess I just need to have a vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
We'll see you, Kristen.
Ayes have it. We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Good job. Great.
So it's Joel's turn next time. You'll be traveling. You'll be eating the McDonald's.